Most men think that their problem is discipline. They think if they could just force themselves to stop scrolling, stop procrastinating, stop their addictions, and stop eating junk food, and stop wasting time, that their life would finally change. But that's not the real problem, because if discipline was the answer, every man who felt motivated on a Monday would already be successful. The truth is that bad habits are rarely the problem. Bad habits are only symptoms. The real problem is identity. A man who knows who he is does not need endless motivation. A man with standards does not negotiate with temptation. A man with purpose, he doesn't spend hours wasting time wondering what he should be doing next. Most men today are trapped because they are trying to change behavior without changing the person that is currently producing that behavior. And until that changes, nothing changes. Today, I'm going to show you exactly why bad habits control so many men, why motivation keeps failing, why willpower alone isn't enough, how your environment programs your behavior, how dopamine is controlling your decisions, and most importantly, how to become the type of man who naturally lives with discipline. This isn't about becoming perfect. This is about becoming dangerous to mediocrity. Let's begin. Imagine a man waking up at 8 a.m. and before his feet touches the floor, he checks his phone. 5 minutes become 20, 20 become 40, and now he is rushing. He skips breakfast, he's already stressed, and he opens social media again. He sees people richer than him, fitter than him, more successful than he is, and now he feels behind. He watches short form content, consumes more information, more entertainment, and more stimulation, and by noon he is exhausted despite accomplishing nothing. By evening he feels guilty, and at night he promises to himself that tomorrow will be different. Tomorrow arrives. The same cycle repeats itself again and again. This is not laziness. This is conditioning. Most men are not making conscious decisions. They are just reacting. Their environment is thinking for them. Their phones decide what they focus on. Their emotions decide what they do. Their cravings decide what they consume. Their impulses decide who they become. And when you spend years living this way, you slowly lose control over your own life. And the scary part, you don't even notice it happening at first because everyone around you is trapped too. When everyone is distracted, distraction feels normal. When everyone is weak, weakness feels acceptable. When everyone lacks discipline, discipline looks extreme. This is called the invisible prison. Most people think that bad habits are about pleasure. They are wrong. Bad habits are about escape. Nobody scrolls on social media because scrolling itself is enjoyable. They scroll because they don't want to sit alone with their thoughts. Nobody watches porn because pixels are meaningful. They do it because it temporarily removes loneliness, stress, boredom, or discomfort. Nobody binges on junk food because food is magical. They do it because eating feels better than facing reality. The habit is not the problem. The emotion underneath it is. Every bad habit is attempting to solve a problem. The problem that it solves it temporarily. The stress would eventually return. The insecurity returns. And because the problem itself returns, the habit also returns. And this creates dependency. You no longer use the habit, and the habit begins to use you. And eventually, your brain learns stress equals scroll, boredom equals YouTube, loneliness equals porn, discomfort equals food. And this becomes automatic. You stop choosing and you start obeying. And this is when addiction starts to begin. Your brain is not designed for modern life. For most of human history, you hunted, you built, you explored, you solved problems. Then dopamine arrived. Today, dopamine arrives instantly. One swipe, one click, one notification, one video, one snack, one image, one purchase, one hit. Modern technology has created a world where reward arrives before effort. And when reward arrives before effort, effort becomes painful. This is why so many young men struggle to focus. This is why reading feels difficult. This is why training consistently feels hard. Because your brain has been accustomed to instant reward, and reality cannot compete. The gym requires months, business requires years, mastery requires decades, social media requires 1 second. Who wins? For most men, social media wins. Not because they are weak, not because they are incapable, it is because they never learned how dopamine works. The solution is not to eliminate dopamine, the solution is to reconnect dopamine with effort. Train, build, learn, create, and serve. Earn your rewards again, and your brain slowly starts to begin to heal. There's a question that most men avoid. Who are you? Not your name, not your age, not your goals. Who are you? Because every action that you take is a vote. Every workout, every skipped workout, every promise kept, every promise broken, every difficult conversation, every excuse, every decision that you do casts a vote for your identity, and most men accidentally build an identity of weakness. They tell themselves, I'm inconsistent, I'm lazy, I always quit, I never finish things, and after enough repetition, they start to believe it. And once they believe it, they start acting accordingly to it. Self mastery begins when you stop asking, how do I become disciplined? And start asking, what would a disciplined man do? Then do that again and again and again until that identity becomes real. Because identities are not discovered, they are built, one action at a time. There's something that nobody tells young men. The biggest danger in your life is not failure, it is comfort. Most men are terrified of failure, but comfort is what is slowly destroying them. Because failure hurts, failure gets your attention, failure forces you to adapt. Comfort does the exact opposite. Comfort slowly puts you to sleep. Comfort tells you that you can start tomorrow. You deserve a break. One more video won't matter. One more hour won't matter. One more day won't matter. Then one day becomes a week becomes and a month becomes a year, and sometimes a year even becomes a decade. Then one day you'll wake up and realize you have spent years becoming someone that you never wanted to become. The dangerous thing about comfort is that it never feels dangerous in the first place. Imagine two men. One man is struggling. His life isn't where he wants it to be. He knows it. He feels it. Every day he wakes up and sees the gap between who he is and who he can become. The second man is just comfortable. Not successful, not fulfilled, just comfortable. Enough entertainment, enough food, enough distraction, enough pleasure, enough convenience, enough comfort to avoid change. Let me ask you something. Which man is more likely to transform? The obvious answer is the first one, because comfort creates stagnation. The modern world today is built to keep you comfortable. Food delivered to your door, entertainment available every second, infinite scrolling, instant gratification, no effort, no struggle, and yet anxiety is rising. Depression is rising. Meaninglessness is rising. Because human beings were not designed for endless comfort. We were designed for growth, for challenge, for responsibility, for purpose. The strongest periods of your life probably weren't the easiest. Think about it. The moments that you are part of today probably required struggle. You earned them, you fought for them, you became stronger because of them. And the modern world sells comfort, but your soul wants growth. And every day you must choose between them, because you cannot simultaneously chase comfort and become the man that you know that you are capable of becoming. Most people blame themselves. They say, I have no discipline, I have no motivation, I have no willpower, but very few people ask the obvious question, why is it so hard? Imagine placing a recovering alcoholic inside a bar. Now imagine placing them on a mountain with no alcohol anywhere nearby. Which environment gives them a better chance? The answer is obvious, yet people ignore this principle every day. They keep junk food in their kitchen, they keep distractions on their phone, they keep toxic influences around them. Then they wonder why discipline feels impossible. Your environment is shaping your behavior, whether you realize it or not. Every object around you is sending you a message. The food on your counter, the apps on your phone, the people that are in your life, the content that you consume, the music that you listen to, the standards that you tolerate. Everything is influencing you. Look around your room, look around your life. Everything that you repeatedly see is training you. The question is, training you into what? A distracted man? A weak man? A disciplined man? A focused man? A purposeful man? Every environment is invisible until you understand it. Then you realize it's controlling almost everything. Most men try to become disciplined while living inside an environment that is designed for distraction. That's like trying that's like trying to stay dry while standing in the rain. Eventually you will get soaked. The solution isn't to become superhuman. The solution is to become intelligent. Remove friction from good habits and add friction to bad habits. Make training easier and make distraction harder. Make productive behavior obvious and make destructive behavior inconvenient. Because discipline goes a lot more faster when the environment itself supports it. Your attention is the most valuable thing that you own. More valuable than money, more valuable than talent, more valuable than opportunities. Because whatever gets your attention eventually will get your life. If something controls your attention, it controls your future. And right now, there are thousands of companies that are competing for it. Every notification, every headline, every recommendation, every algorithm, every advertisement, every piece of content, they are all competing for your attention. Not because they care about you, it's because your attention is profitable. The longer that you stay distracted, the more money someone else will make from it. The scary part is that most people never even realize this. They believe that they are choosing what to consume, when in reality, they are just consuming what someone else has selected for them. A distracted man becomes easy to control, easy to influence, easy to manipulate, easy to sell to. That is why attention is a weapon, and if you cannot control your attention, you won't be able to control your life. The ability to focus has become a superpower. Most people cannot even sit still in silence for 10 minutes. Most people cannot read for 30 minutes without checking their phones. Most people cannot even complete a task without opening another tab. Their minds are fragmented, scattered, pulled in hundreds of directions. But every great achievement requires focus. Every skill requires focus. Every relationship requires focus. Every meaningful life requires focus. The quality of your attention determines the quality of your life. Remember that. Guard it aggressively, protect it ruthlessly, because if you don't, someone else will take it from you. The strongest weapon against habits isn't discipline, it isn't motivation, it isn't productivity, it is purpose. Because purpose changes everything. A man without purpose asks, how do I stop wasting time? A man with purpose doesn't even have time to waste. A man without purpose asks, how do I stop scrolling? A man with purpose is too busy building. A man without purpose is constantly searching for stimulation, while a man with purpose is consumed by a mission. This is why so many young men struggle today. Nobody ever taught them what they are building. Nobody ever showed them the direction. So they drift, and drifting creates addiction. Drifting creates distraction. Drifting creates emptiness. Purpose doesn't have to be perfect at first. You don't need every answer figured out. You don't need your whole entire future figured out. You simply just need a direction that is worth moving forward to. Because once a man has a reason to wake up, many of his bad habits begin to lose power. The urge itself doesn't disappear. The temptation doesn't disappear. But the mission becomes bigger. And when the mission becomes bigger than the temptation, everything changes. Most people think that discipline creates self respect, but the truth is, discipline is often the result of self respect. Think about someone that you genuinely respect. Maybe it's a great leader, maybe it's an athlete, maybe it's a man that you know personally. Now imagine watching him spend 6 hours scrolling on social media every single day. Imagine watching him break promises to himself every day. Imagine watching him quit every time something gets difficult. You wouldn't respect him anymore. So here's the uncomfortable question. Why should you respect yourself if you are doing the exact same thing? Before you get defensive, I want you to really think about this. Because self respect is not something that you magically receive. It isn't confidence. It isn't self love. It isn't positive affirmations. Self respect is earned. It is earned when your actions match your standards. Most men secretly know why their confidence is low. They blame their appearance. They blame their height. They blame their money. They blame their circumstances. But deep down, they know the truth. The reason that they don't trust themselves is because they have spent years proving to themselves that they cannot be trusted. They say they'll wake up early, they don't. They say they'll train, they don't. They say they'll quit a bad habit, they don't. They say they'll study, they don't. And eventually the mind starts to pay attention. Eventually your brain says, why would I believe you? You never do what you say. And that is when confidence disappears. Not because you failed, because you stopped being honest with yourself. A man who keeps promises to himself develops a quiet confidence. Not arrogance, not ego, confidence. Because he knows something that most people do not. He knows his words mean something. He knows he's going to do something. It gets when he says he's going to do when he says he's going to do something, it gets done. That is self-respect. And without self-respect, every habit change becomes temporary because you will always return to that old identity that you have built. The goal is not to impress other people. The goal is to become someone whose own word can be respected and has been earned. One of the biggest lies young men believe is that confidence comes first. They think if I felt more confident, I'd go to the gym. If I felt more confident, I'd approach people. If I felt more confident, I'd start a business. If I felt more confident, I'd post the content. But confidence itself does not come before action. Confidence comes from evidence. Imagine two men. The first spends years watching motivational videos, reading quotes, thinking positively, visualizing success. The second man spends years taking action, training, learning, failing, and improving. Who is going to be more confident? The obvious answer is the second man, because confidence isn't just a feeling, it is accumulated proof. Every difficult thing that you do creates evidence. Every workout completed creates evidence. Every promise kept creates evidence. Every challenge overcame creates evidence. And eventually your brain stops asking whether you are capable, and it already knows. Most men wait to feel ready. The successful ones move before they even feel ready. And that is the difference. Readiness is just a myth. Nobody ever feels ready. The man who built the business was not ready. The man who transformed his body was not ready. The man who overcame his addiction was not ready. They became ready through action. Waiting for confidence is like trying to become strong even before lifting weights. The process creates the outcome, not the other way around. Here's something that sounds harsh. You are becoming more like the people around you, whether you want it or not, whether you realize it or not. Human beings adapt. It is what we do. If you spend enough time around ambitious people, you become more ambitious. If you spend enough time around disciplined people, you become more disciplined. If you spend enough time around negative people, you become more negative. The standards around you eventually become your standards. This is why environment matters so much. Not just physical environments, social environments. Look at your closest circle. Do they challenge you? Do they inspire you? Do they push you forward? Or do they encourage mediocrity? Many young men are trapped because they are trying to build an extraordinary life while being surrounded by people who are committed to average. And average people often attack growth, not because they are evil, because growth reminds them of what they are avoiding. Some people become uncomfortable the moment that you become more disciplined. Some people call you obsessed the moment you become focused. Some people call you boring the moment that you raise your standards. Some people accuse you of thinking that you are better than them. And understand this, your growth will expose people, not because you are trying to, because your actions create contrast. And some people would rather criticize your discipline than confront their excuses. You cannot let that stop you, because the quality of your life will be heavily influenced by the quality of the people around you. Choose wisely. Nobody chooses mediocrity. They drift into it. Nobody wakes up one day and says, I want to live an average life. Nobody says, I want to waste my potential. Nobody says, I want to live a life I regret. Nobody says I want to become weak, but they slowly make decisions that lead them there. One excuse, one distraction, one compromise, one missed opportunity, one broken promise. Again and again and again. Mediocrity is not one big decision. It is thousands of small ones. The scary part is that mediocrity often feels comfortable. Comfortable enough to avoid pain, comfortable enough to avoid urgency, but never comfortable enough to feel fulfilled. That is why so many people feel empty, because they aren't suffering enough to change, and they aren't even going enough to feel alive. They are stuck right in the middle, existing, not building, not progressing, not becoming, just existing. You were not built for that. You were built to grow, to challenge yourself, to develop your mind, to strengthen your body, to improve your character, to build something that is meaningful. The purpose of life is not comfort. The purpose of life is expansion, to become more capable, more disciplined, more useful, more powerful, more aligned with your potential. And every day you have a choice. Continue drifting or begin becoming. Because 10 years from now you will arrive somewhere. The only question is whether you arrive there intentionally or not. Everything that you have heard so far means nothing if it just stays in your head. Because understanding discipline is not the same thing as living it. Most men don't fail because they lack information. They fail because they never enter a sustained period where their actions actually match what they claim to believe. So here's where everything becomes real. Not theoretical, not motivational, real. For the next 90 days, your life becomes simple. You are no longer negotiating with yourself. You are no longer trying. You are rebuilding your identity through repetition. Every single day. You operate under non negotiable standards. You train your body even when you don't feel like it. You do the work that you said you would do even before distraction has a chance to take over. You control your inputs, what you watch, what you consume, and what you allow into your mind. And you keep your word to yourself, even in the small things, because that is where identity is formed. Not in big moments, in repeated ones. Because 90 days is long enough to expose who you actually are, and short enough to prove that you can change. Most people will not complete this, not because it is complicated, because the moment that motivation disappears, they continue to confuse discomfort with failure. And no, I do not expect you to do this perfectly in 90 days. What I do expect and would want from you if you are taking this seriously is that you get back right into the challenge after you have failed. Motivation is not supposed to last. It was never designed to anyways. Motivation is a spark, not a system. It gets you started, but it will never carry you through repetition. And repetition is where transformation actually happens. Most men quit right at the exact moment that growth begins. The first week feels powerful, the second week feels harder, the third week feels boring, and the fourth week feels meaningless. And that is where they break. Not because they can't continue, because they expected to feel something while doing it. But discipline doesn't feel like progress in that moment. It feels like resistance. It feels like repetition. It feels like nothing is changing until one day everything has changed. That is the gap that most people cannot survive. They want instant proof. But identity doesn't change in days, it changes in accumulated proof. Every day you live with standards. Something invisible is happening. You are either building trust within yourself or destroying it. There is no neutral. Every time you do what you said you would do, even when you didn't feel like it, you deposit into your identity. Your brain records this is who I am. And every time that you break your word, even in the small things, you withdraw from that account. And over time, this compounds, not dramatically, but quietly, until one day that you have realized your life is just a physical result of your daily standards. That is the real compounding effect. Not just money, not just fitness, identity. And once identity shifts, everything else will follow without force. Discipline stops becoming something that you practice. It becomes who you are. Because the man you want to become is not waiting for inspiration. He is waiting for repetition. And repetition starts the moment that you stop negotiating with yourself. Today. And remember this, your future self is being built every day in the boring choices that no one else sees. Make sure you make your day count.